breach in the landscape that divided it in two. "Crack in the world," he said aloud. The name sprang from nowhere onto his lips. He waved back at his yelling brother and strode onwards. The crack in the world turned out to be unimpressive. A muddy gash through an eroded gully in the middle of a chunk of spindly bush. 20 or 30 acres of it, he guessed, being slowly squeezed between the crab claws of the growing town. Moorabool, population 3,560, the sign on the highway said, though he had no idea where most of them were hiding. On a Saturday afternoon, you might see 10 people on Main Street. The pubs would be jam-packed, of course, but out here on the fringes right now, the only movement was a tiny car beetling along a row of little houses, melting in the heat haze. That and the flies. Hal peered down the yellow-brown slope through the gaps between the willows and saw the muddy creek at the bottom. No more than 3 yards across at its widest, but a decent jump would get you across in most places. "Crack in the world," he murmured, loving how it meandered between the crumbling clay walls 100 yards either direction, the ends of it crimped off like a spent tube of toothpaste. Evan barged up, red and sweaty, puffing his head off. "Dad said, stay away from the creek." "It isn't a creek. It's the crack in the world." Not that Evan cared. "Said you'd wait. Hal, you ran away." "Sorry," he lied to shut him up, because for the first time since they'd arrived, he was excited about something. Not about Moorabool. It was still just a hick town with nothing in it. But this place, this was the first part of it that was actually not boring as batshit. He stared past the crack in the world, on and on into the mysterious vistas beyond. "What are you waiting for? A gilt-edged invitation?" He hopped onto a rock in the middle of the creek, then leapt onto the gravelled bank. "Hang on! Dad said... Hal!" Evan was still tiptoeing across, thongs bogged in the mud, by the time Hal scrambled up the bank on the far side. He was standing atop a small rise staring at something when Evan staggered up beside him and gasped softly. A strange, yellowish vehicle-cum-dwelling. They couldn't take their eyes off it. The depleted shell of a truck cabin at one end merged into a decrepit caravan at the other. It was like some bizarre caterpillar with extremities so different they might have belonged to separate species. The truck's bonnet lay on the ground, engine parts in shades of rust flung around it like a mad mechanic's toys. Where once were wheels, tree stumps now propped the apparition up. Skew-whiff sheds and lean-tos lay scattered around it, rotting in the grass. The caravan was covered in peeling tan and yellow paint, and above the door a faded sign declared, "Highway Palace." It was a ruined palace, though, with oval windows cracked or broken, glinting like jagged teeth, shreds of lace curtains behind them. There was nothing palatial or grand about it now, and probably never had been. But behind the curtains, mystery seemed to lurk in every dusty corner. "Wowee," Evan whispered. "We have to go inside," Hal gaped, half afraid it might vanish if he looked away for a second. Evan launched himself, galloping down the ridge towards a rusted 44-gallon drum, stood on its end in the hard clay. "Let's roll it down the hill." He went to grab it and let out a shriek. "Hal! It's dead!" "What?" Hal traipsed over. Hal! It's a dead dog! Look at it!" Pulling him aside, Hal peered into the drum. It was a dead dog, all right. A male, from the testicles sticking out between its lean brown haunches. The hind legs were all twisted up as if some huge fist had smashed him head first into the drum, then crammed him down like a bundle of rags. Hal leaned in, caught a whiff of something, pulled back, and leaned in again, gingerly sniffing. He had smelled dead animals before, but not up close. Not in heat like this. "Stinks!" Evan winced. "No, it doesn't. Apart from a faint odor of..."